When you think of Resident Evil, what comes to mind? Is it a jump scare that haunted your dreams as a child?
Holy fucking God!
Or is it that giant boulder that has haunted Chris's dreams since he was a child?
Chris!
Or maybe it's something else. For me, it's something much cooler. In a series that arms you with shotguns, grenade launchers, and whatever the hell this thing is. Beating a Resident Evil game knife only is a fun way to test your skills, and often your patience, all while adding a little bit of style to a game that you already own 4 copies of. This is sure to be a big hit at parties, and it will definitely impress your friends. But even though it can be attempted in any of the games, it often ends up thwarted by one of the series' biggest tropes.
Jill, use it! Kill it, whatever it is!
Some RE games can be completed almost entirely knife only for players to find that the ending requires them to use a special weapon to defeat the final boss.
You lose, big guy.
This has always kind of annoyed me. So, which games can get around this? Which Resident Evil games can you actually clear by using nothing but the knife? Well, for some reason, I decided to try and find out by attempting to complete each of the mainline Resident Evil games knife only. And I decided to start my journey at the beginning, where it all began. Yeah, technically this one's first. It's worth mentioning that this is the only game from the mainline series that I had never actually finished. I'm not sure if it was the enemy design or the game's story, but despite multiple attempts, I just could never bring myself to complete it. Personal taste aside though, RE0 is a pretty tough game to get through.
We gotta cooperate with each other from now on. You got that?
In a first for the series, you're controlling 2 characters. Sometimes
you're controlling them both at the same time sometimes.
This took a bit of getting used to, but it ended up being fine once I found that you only really need to get one character through a room at a time. In situations like this, as long as your partner is close enough, they'll teleport to you on the other side free of harm. Sometimes this wasn't possible though, thanks to all the super fun enemies in this game. But little did I know, the biggest meme in this run would actually come in the form of its boss fights. Well, really it was just one. The Scorpion can be skipped entirely by picking up an item as he starts his charge attack. This little guy was too busy giving Rebecca a hug to worry about Billy slashing at him, and both Tyrant fights were pretty free, as long as you have one character on the sidelines during that rematch.
I'll go check over there.
Okay.
The real challenge of this run was this guy. This bat took more time off my life than underage smoking did. Despite trying for over an hour, I never really found a solid strategy for this fight, and I couldn't find much help online when I tried looking for a speedrun strat either. Even the world record holder for this category gets memed on just as hard as I was.
This is bullshit, dude. There's nothing skill about this. Look at that shit. What?
But like most knife-only boss fights, it really just comes down to patience and having a ton of healing items on hand. The worst part about this fight, once you're lucky enough to land your first few strikes on the bat, it decides to tilt the scales further in its favor by calling a dozen or so smaller bats to come and interrupt your attacks constantly. Oh, that's really interesting. Wow. Oh, look at this, more bats. Okay, well, don't mind me. With a little luck though, I eventually brute forced my way through it and went on to finish RE0 for the first time. Now, I could talk about the final boss, but honestly, that title should just belong to this fucking bat. It was by far the worst part of this run, or any other knife run for that matter. So, is it possible to do knife only in Resident Evil 0?
Yes, it is.
And with the worst run out of the way, we can finally move on to the Spencer Mansion.
There are only 3 STARS members left now. Captain Wesker, Barry, and myself. We don't know where Chris is.
I'm home. This is so much better. The original Resident Evil released in 1996 and introduced players to the world of survival horror. It's here that we're first introduced to the final weapon trope that I mentioned earlier.
It's coming! Jill! Kill that monster! We're Amazon, Jill!
This ending can be avoided, though, by leaving our teammates behind. Doing so skips the rooftop tyrant fight and avoids the forced pickup of the rocket launcher at the end of the game. It's an anticlimactic ending, sure, but all of your friends will be impressed with your true knife-only completion. Or, you know, they would be if you hadn't just left them for dead.
Barry! Wait, I'll be back to get you out.
Okay, no sightseeing though.
He's alive. I just know.
You can abandon your friends the same way in both the original and the remake, but the actual playthroughs are very different. In both games, you'll be dodging around zombies as you make your way to the end, but in the original, this is made much easier to do with a technique known as pause canceling. By opening your inventory as your slash connects, you can cancel your attack animation, which allows you to run by enemies with ease. This really only helps with getting past enemies and doesn't come into play much with the bosses, who, by the way, are a cakewalk in comparison to that fucking bad in RE0. In both games, Black Tiger can be avoided entirely by slashing the web off the door, and Yawn can be free if you stand in a specific spot to get him stuck. Otherwise, you're gonna need some brute force. The original Plant 42 didn't give me too much trouble, but the remake fight was much more annoying. Luckily, I had just wasted hours of my life fighting the bat in RE0. So I was fully dead inside at this point, and I managed to push through this one feeling nothing. Sure, I could have just used the V-Jolt and skipped the boss entirely, but what fun is that? Am I right? Woo! The Crimson Elder boss fight was probably the most difficult, actually. And after my first run as Jill, I found that there's a strategy to get him stuck in the wall by baiting out his grab attack in a specific spot in this room. The original has its share of cheese too. The final tyrant fight is made especially easy thanks to him getting stuck on the lifeless corpse of our boy Wesker here.
Truly, the apex predator.
The remake tyrant, though, doesn't really have a cheesy strat as far as I could find, but he's still a pretty easy fight overall thanks to advanced controls. He can instantly kill you if your health is low enough though. But yeah, knife only is totally possible in both the original and the remake, and overall I found them pretty enjoyable. But what about Resident Evil 2? Rather than multiple endings, this game has a total of 4 scenarios, evenly split between its 2 characters, Leon and Claire. In the original, players must choose the A scenarios if they want to complete a true knife only run. This avoids the final fight with Mr. X, which features yet another rocket launcher ending.
Game over.
Every other boss in the game can be knifed to death, including everyone's favorite sewer gator. In the original, this fight can be pretty fucking scary actually. Normally, you would just shoot this gas tank to instantly blow the gator up, but in knife only, you have to hit the gator about 30 times before reaching the end of the hall. Failing to do so results in an instant kill, and your run is over. But if you get through this fight, the rest of the boss fights are very straightforward, though they can also easily go sideways if you make a slight mistake. These fights took quite a bit of practice, but eventually I was able to defeat the doggo Birkin and finish the game knife only. But is the same true of the remake? Well, you would think so, considering Resident Evil 2 Remake has the strongest knife in the entire series by far. Yeah, really, that knife.
Words ain't gonna cut it with this.
This is because the number of hits from this knife are directly tied to frames, and increasing the frame rate to something like, I don't know, 120 causes the knife to hit multiple times, resulting in high bursts of damage. But unlike the original, a true knife-only run in the remake is only possible with Claire.
Damn it!
That's because Claire's main antagonist, William Birkin, kills Mr. X after the RPD section. Leon, on the other hand, faces off against X at the end, just like in the original. And just like the original, he's forced to use a rocket launcher to kill him for good. In addition to that, he also has to use a weapon earlier in the game to kill the sewer gator, so knife only for Leon is definitely out. And while Claire does get a special weapon for her final encounter with Birkin, it's not a mandatory pickup, and using the knife instead actually makes things a lot easier.
Why can't you just die?
In fact, every boss in this game is made easy with the knife. Even on lower frame rates or on consoles, it's still a viable strategy in every single boss fight. In general, Claire's RE2 remake speedrun is my favorite of all time, but the knife run that cuts through the rest ended up being the original Resident Evil 3. Jill adds another true knife only under her belt here, in a run that borrows some familiar techniques from previous classic entries to deal with the courtyard nemesis fight. It uses some less conventional tactics to deal with its other bosses though. And that's what makes it so fun. My favorite of which is probably the acid nemesis fight. For this one, you have to use the knife to turn these valves and release acid onto Nemesis. With the exception of the courtyard fight, the fights in this knife run were all pretty unique to the rest of the series, and I think I enjoyed doing them the most. Boy, that bat was a close second though, I tell you. The knife strats in the RE3 remake are also pretty unique, but you'll need more than that to finish the game. You can complete some parts of the game using knife only, but it's ultimately pointless since you're forced to use a couple of weapons at the end of the game.
No other way.
When paired with the dodge mechanic and a bit of practice, the knife can be used to put out big damage on bosses, which makes it another really fun run for knife only. Even though you can't technically do it, it isn't as strong as the RE2 remake knife, but there's a bit more technique behind it, so there's that at least. But because of those forced weapon pickups, it just doesn't make the cut. Now it's time to take a quick look at some more games that are like, 90% knife only possible. The first is Code Veronica, which was probably the second hardest of all the knife runs, despite the knife being really strong overall in this game. In fact, before RE2 Remake, this was the Resident Evil knife. By swinging down at enemies, it will register multiple hits and do big damage, similar to RE2. This is nice for bosses, but it was mostly useful when I didn't feel confident enough in making a dodge around some zombies. And it's important not to take damage in Code Veronica knife runs. You need plenty of health for the bosses because they're pretty rough. One of the most challenging bosses was Nosferatu. Normally you're given a sniper rifle for this fight, but with the knife, you're forced to get up close and personal, putting you at a higher risk of being poisoned. It also means you're at risk of being knocked off the platform. I probably died here more than any other fight in Code Veronica. It's cheap.
Alright, good luck to both these players.
Already on the center?
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
It's a very smart game plan though.
Oh man, this is what he's been looking for all the
Also,
time.
his weak spot is on his chest. So the down slash cheese wasn't really all that effective here.
Got you now.
That technique did help a ton in the fight with the tyrant on the plane though. For this fight, you want to dodge this attack here and punish. You have to eat a hit after each exchange, and your positioning matters a lot, so this fight can be very easy to mess up. And so can the first tyrant fight, where you have to time your first attack to dodge his swing. Without that timing, he's probably pushing you into the fire every single time. The final boss, Alexia, was much more annoying though. In the first fight, it's not too bad, but she can kill you with one hit, so you're only able to get a couple of attacks in before having to move away to avoid the grab. Survive that though, and later you're treated to her second form. Now this is your standard brute force boss fight that we've seen in every game so far, and as far as annoying knife only boss fights go, this one checks every single box.
Little minions that stun and interrupt your attacks all the time. Knockdown attacks that ruin your positioning.
But with enough healing items and determination, you can defeat this phase with the knife. Unfortunately though, CVX suffers a similar fate to the RE3 remake, with the end of the game forcing the use of a big anime weapon to finish the final boss. If not for that final phase, a true knife-only run would be possible. But it's not. So now we enter the action era. This will probably come as no surprise, but RE4, RE5, and RE6 cannot be completed knife only. Not even close, really.
Time's up, you son of a bitch.
There are so many moments that force the use of weapons or even vehicles in this game. Everything from final boss fights to simple puzzle solutions. You're using weapons. Rather than list them all out here, we'll just let a quick little montage take care of it instead.
Aim for the dynamite!
So finally, we reached the end of our journey with RE7 and RE8. Every other game so far has given us some kind of badass combat knife that a professional killer might use, but in RE7, you're given a common-ass pocket knife.
What am I gonna do with a knife?
I'm not complaining though, this thing gets the job done just fine. The fights with Jack were all pretty easy, you just slash to win. Marguerite wasn't too bad either, just caused a bit of, mental damage, but the fights were all pretty straightforward. It was kinda cool ducking under Jack's chainsaw attacks in that second fight. I probably liked that one the most. I really thought I would need to use the chainsaw to beat him, but the knife was a lot stronger than I thought. I still had to use the chainsaw to escape the room, but I'm not really sure that should count. Hell, let's say it doesn't count. Since this is a Resident Evil game, we have to use a special gun at the end anyway to stop Evie once she transforms into a giant goo monster. So, those are the rules.
Those are the rules.
Other than that, there's also the axe that you're forced to use on Mia at the start of the game. So, knife only is only kinda possible. For Resident Evil 8, you get a crazy looking knife this time, but unfortunately, there are still a few spots that require the use of other weapons, like shooting things for puzzles, or to avoid death traps, or using rockets against Heisenberg in some sort of, tank vehicle, as you do. So unfortunately, both of the winners' games end up being disqualified. And there you have it. Now you know which Resident Evil games can be beaten with the knife and which ones can be beaten with the knife. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get my games out of the trash. I only did that as a joke for the video. So, okay, I think that's all of them. Let me check. Yep, all good. Resident Evil 9 comes out soon, and you can bet your ass I'll be trying to beat it with the knife only. So we'll have a follow-up video then. And if you enjoy this kind of Resident Evil content, check out this video about Wesker. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.